4 months ago, my wife and I were both in our 30s, and we had been married for 2 years. I had planned to go on a business trip that would last for 2 days. I was supposed to leave very early in the morning and return late in the evening the next day. However, after driving for 5 hours, the trip was canceled. Although I wasn't too bothered since I was compensated for my time, I decided to head back home unexpectedly. When I got home, I was surprised to see a car parked next to my wife's car. It turned out to be her brother's car. He was a muscular guy who was married and had a baby that my wife used to babysit. She enjoyed hiking with her brother regardless of the weather, and they were very close. They went on long hiking expeditions together, which she loved as she looked forward to becoming a mother someday. I didn't mind because I'm not really an outdoorsy person. Instead, I would usually work a little more or dedicate time to building miniature boats, which was my hobby. Although I fully supported their relationship, I became a little wary of my wife's brother when he became overly emotional at our wedding and planted a huge kiss on my wife's lips. I was unable to do anything about the kiss. It happened so quickly. Later, he apologized and asked for forgiveness, blaming his actions on the strong emotions he felt from seeing his sister get married and leave the family. However, when I returned home and parked my car behind my wife's car, I heard slow music playing loudly, which was an unusual setting for my wife and brother-in-law. I didn't have to imagine what was happening because I walked in on them slow dancing together. He was holding her close to his body, and their embrace was more akin to that of a romantic couple. As soon as they noticed my presence, they quickly broke apart and looked extremely guilty. I could tell from their expressions that my marriage was in jeopardy. My wife tried to explain that her brother needed emotional support because his own marriage was struggling, but to me, that didn't justify why they were slow dancing together in our living room. Despite how difficult it was, I refrained from asking any further questions as they were already aware of how suspicious it appeared. It wasn't long before my wife went to babysit her baby niece, and one day she accidentally left her phone behind. When I checked her WhatsApp, I discovered that she was sexting her brother, sending him pictures, declaring her love for him, and arranging hookups by pretending to go babysit. It was the most revolting and disturbing discovery I had ever made in my life. I couldn't believe what I had just found and threw her phone before running to the bathroom to be sick. Everyone always assumed that my wife and her brother were just really close due to their difficulty in making friends when they were younger and their shared passion for hiking that no one else in the family had. However, I knew that I couldn't confront her about it immediately, as it would not have stopped their inappropriate behavior. I came to the realization that I was nothing more than a cover husband, allowing my wife to engage in a secret sexual relationship with her own blood brother. I stormed back to her phone, seething with anger and a sense of betrayal. I took screenshots and sent them to myself, plotting my revenge while pretending everything was normal. It was excruciating to see her behave as if nothing had happened, despite the fact that she had hooked up with her brother behind my back. That night, I lay awake next to her in our bed, unable to sleep. The next morning, I hired a private investigator to get photographic evidence of their affair. I knew that when I confronted her with the truth, she wouldn't be able to deny the consequences. Shortly after, she informed me that she was going on a hiking trip with her brother, and I played along, all the while keeping the private investigator informed. Late that night, the PI called me and informed me that she and her brother had checked into a hotel room along the beach a few hours away. I immediately began packing my things, knowing that it was only a matter of time before the PI got photographic evidence. I wasn't sure why they weren't actually hiking together this time, but at that point, I didn't really care about anything and just felt numb. I was sent pictures of them strolling along the beach and boardwalk like a newlywed couple, with her brother's hand resting on her butt, full-on kisses on the lips, and intimate gazes exchanged over drinks at the bar. The evidence was clear. They were involved in a romantic relationship. I was ready to pack my bags and leave, but before doing so, I invited both her immediate and extended family and friends over, including her brother's wife and baby. I printed out large copies of the pictures and hung them all over the house, starting from the front door. As I left a note on the door instructing them to let themselves in. Little did they know, I had already left town with all my belongings and no intention of returning. After they entered the house, they called me in a panic, demanding to know what the pictures meant. I explained everything to them over the phone, making it clear that these two family members were engaging in an incestuous relationship that likely started when they were living together with their parents. I even told them where the two of them currently were, in case they didn't believe me and wanted to see for themselves. Hours later, my soon-to-be ex-wife called me, screaming down the phone as chaos ensued in the background. It became evident that her entire family and some of her friends had arrived at their hotel. Her cousins were assaulting her brother, and the hotel had contacted the police. She demanded to know why I had done this to her, and I replied that she deserved it. She had been living a falsehood that she could no longer maintain. I informed her that the divorce papers were on the table, and she began sobbing, so I terminated the call. I was already in enough pain and did not want to contemplate how her life would unfold. A few days later, her mother contacted me to apologize on her daughter and son's behalf. She informed me that the police never showed up at the hotel, and instead, the hotel staff intervened and stopped the fight. In the commotion, the sister and brother fled to avoid further attention. For a few days, the entire family was in shambles, but now they are starting to settle down. The brother's wife is also filing for divorce, as well as seeking custody and support. Since neither of them signed the divorce papers before fleeing, it's now a waiting game. I am relieved that this truth came out when it did because I could not have continued the relationship without knowing the reality. I am focused on moving forward and leaving all of this behind me. I have found a great new place to live and am still employed by the same company. I am taking things one step at a time. This entire situation still feels surreal to me. I can't imagine the emotional pain and turmoil you must have experienced, OP. I am grateful that we did not have children together before this all came to light. It would have been a terrible situation if she had become pregnant by her brother and tried to pass off the child as ours. Although the discovery of this situation caused you pain, it is a relief that the truth is now known. I admire how you handled the situation because you understood that immediately confronting them would not have stopped their behavior and might have even made things worse. Instead, you patiently and swiftly gathered the necessary evidence. These two individuals are not only terrible for their actions, but also for deceiving their partners by hiding their affairs. It appears that luck was on your side, as things could have been much worse if this had come to light years later. I wish you the best of luck, OP. Now on to the second story of the day. Both my wife and I were busy working individuals when I discovered that our marriage was over. We were 27 and 33 years old, respectively, and had only been married for 2 years. Perhaps it was a good thing that our marriage was relatively short-lived. On the day our marriage ended, we had arranged a brief getaway at a cabin located almost 2 hours away from our home. After we arrived and settled in, she requested that I look up a recipe she wanted to prepare for dinner. Since my phone was nearly dead, I plugged it in and pondered how she had been distancing herself from me over the past few months. Her behavior had changed over the past few months. She spent more time on her phone and had even added a passcode to it. This was odd since we were both so busy with work, and I couldn't imagine who she was trying to keep out. She had always been very open with me, but now she seemed to have no interest in sharing details about her day. So I told her that my phone was charging and asked to use hers to look up the recipe. She unlocked it and handed it to me while she continued to stir the food. As I searched for the recipe, a silent notification from WhatsApp popped up. I didn't even know she had that app. Just as I was about to lock her phone again and be locked out forever, I saw the notification. I instinctively clicked on the notification, and it opened up a string of messages between my wife and another man. The first 2 messages were innocent enough, asking how he was doing and expressing how much she missed him. But then the messages took a turn. The next message read, "I can't stop thinking about how good you feel." I felt like all the blood had drained from my face, and my vision became blurry. I left the room with her phone, trying to hide my emotions. Once I calmed down, I steeled myself to read more of the messages. They went back much further than I was willing to look. After taking screenshots of their explicit messages and plans, including the I love you messages, I left the cabin without saying anything to my wife. I held her phone in my hand and drove away. During the 2-hour drive, I couldn't help but think about my future and the anxiety of being cheated on again by the next woman I love. In the midst of these thoughts, I decided to forge a message to her lover, arranging a meeting at a restaurant at a specific time. He agreed to meet her there. I pondered what this man was going to attempt to say or do to me, but it didn't really matter. All I wanted was an explanation. As soon as he entered, I recognized him from the pictures and videos. I followed him into the restaurant and put my arm around his shoulders. He quickly pulled away and looked at me with great concern. Before he could utter a word, I revealed my identity to him and informed him that he had taken my wife away from me. I suggested we should talk about it. I led him to a table, turned on the recording function on my phone, which now contained all the evidence from my wife's phone, and instructed him to confess everything. Initially, he seemed hesitant, but I reassured him that it was the least he could do. Eventually, he opened up and revealed that he had been seeing my wife for around 10 months. They had met through their coworkers and had fallen in love almost instantly. He claimed that she was the one for him and that he was genuinely in love. I informed him that he could have her, as I no longer had any use for her. I expressed my gratitude towards him for sparing me from 18 years of child support. I gave him her whereabouts and requested that he go pick her up. With a heavy heart, I drove home, although it had been shattered long before. Nevertheless, it was worth learning how long ago this all began. As I sat there, my phone suddenly began to ring. It was the landline from the cabin where my wife and I were staying. She was in a state of panic, asking me if I was okay and why I had left so abruptly. She went on to explain that she couldn't locate her phone and had forgotten that there was a landline available. I called her a liar and accused her of having an affair, stating that she shouldn't have let me see her phone if she had something to hide. She was taken aback by my accusations and began to stutter as she tried to come up with excuses. I told her that there was no need for her to explain herself, as I had already met with the man and obtained all the evidence I needed. She was surprised and started to yell, desperately attempting to clarify what I knew and who I had spoken to. I informed her that the man she had been seeing was on his way to pick her up, and she should pack all of our belongings. She attempted to say something else, but I abruptly hung up on her. I arrived home and quickly packed everything I would need to survive for a few months. I wasn't sure how long she would remain in the house before leaving. Fortunately, we had signed a prenuptial agreement, which meant that I wouldn't lose the house or have to pay her alimony. As a final act, I updated her social media accounts, changing her status to single and posting a selfie of us together. After placing her phone down, it began to buzz immediately with messages from confused friends and family. I called my best friend, seeking a shoulder to cry on and a space to stay for a while. To my surprise, he not only had room for me, but also arranged for me to meet with his cousin, a divorce attorney. While waiting for my friend to pick me up, my wife was brought home by her lover. She was angry with me, which was ridiculous given the circumstances, and kept asking me questions despite being fully aware of what was happening. It was clear that she was completely clueless. In response, I played the recording of her lover explaining how they had met and started sleeping together. My wife began to cry hysterically, insisting that her lover was exaggerating their relationship and that she had never intended to leave me or continue seeing him. Unbeknownst to her, he was standing in the doorway, and upon hearing her words, he was clearly offended and promptly left. I thought to myself, good for him. As he drove away and my wife screamed in frustration, I told her to pack her belongings and leave the house since it belonged to me. I also informed her that I would be sending the divorce papers to her parents' house. She sat on the front step crying as I departed. I heard that my ex-wife was still living with her parents when her boyfriend abruptly ended their relationship after only 2 months. As I had been supporting her education, she struggled to afford it on her own. Unfortunately, her parents were unable to help and instead forced her to move into a cramped apartment with her much younger sister. Meanwhile, I met the love of my life, and we are expecting our second child. I am now confident that my new partner is faithful, loving, and meant to be with me. I am grateful that I made the decision to leave my ex-wife without attempting to reconcile, as it allowed me to move on and find true happiness. I am deeply sorry for what you went through, OP. However, it is fortunate that you did not end up raising a child from an affair as your own or paying child support for years. You were lucky to have discovered the truth when you did and to have had the strength to take the necessary steps. Your spouse started an affair with a coworker without much consideration for your marriage, but eventually even the man she cheated with dumped her. Your story is a powerful example that can inspire hope for those who have been cheated on. It is possible to let go of what is familiar and step outside your comfort zone to heal and live a better life. I wish you and your new wife all the best. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.